Let's kiss for the chat.
We're not kissing.
That's crazy.
Adrien Broner once stood in front of a judge, not a referee, and admitted to the world that he had exactly $13 to his name. This wasn't just a legal admission. It was the ultimate, sobering punchline to a career built entirely on the myth of infinite, unshakable wealth. This is the man who earned over $30 million with his fists, a figure that once seemed as bottomless as his own ego. This is the man who used to flush $100 bills down toilets for social media views.
But this what I do to other bills, man. Real talk, look. Because motherfuckers think that they snuck. They had to sneak in my pocket. They had to sneak in my pocket. Don't keep another bill. They had to sneak in my pocket. They had to. They had to sneak in my pocket. They had to.
At his peak, the About Billion slogan wasn't just a brand. It was a psychological shield, a way to signal to the world that the poverty of his past could never touch him again. In 2026, the About Billion's lifestyle hasn't just faded. It has been replaced by a digital graveyard of viral desperation.
Let's kiss for the chat.
We're not kissing.
That's crazy.
The chaotic violence of fighting over a $500 bet in a public confrontation.
I don't play about money, nigga. I got 10 kids, nigga. Send me 500, nigga.
The fall isn't just financial.
I done lost everything in the last 2 years. The woman I thought I'd marry.
It's a total, systematic dismantling of a persona in real time. We are witnessing the final, stuttering breaths of a legacy that was supposed to redefine the sport. But how did one of boxing's brightest stars, a man once heralded as the literal heir to the Floyd Mayweather throne, destroy everything he touched? How does a man go from generating millions to begging for digital tips on a live stream? Hit the like button, subscribe, and join us for this deep dive into a legacy in ruins. Before the chaos, there was the craft, a raw, undeniable talent forged in the heat of a desperate, localized ambition. Born on July 28, 1989, in the tough, uncompromising neighborhoods of Cincinnati, Ohio, Adrien Broner was a boxing prodigy in the truest, most dangerous sense. For a young Adrien, the streets were his primary classroom. In the naughty, as he called it, the margin for error was razor thin. Cincinnati raised him fast and loud. By his teenage years, his family spent so much time in juvenile court that the sterile hallways felt like a second home. He was a kid caught in a cycle of constant, grinding friction, fights at school, brawls on the block, and eventually a 9th criminal charge for stealing a car before he was even old enough to legally drive one. This wasn't just trouble, it was a lifestyle. To try and channel that internal violence into something productive, his dad started putting gloves on Adrien and his brothers in the backyard, organizing raw, backyard brawls with neighborhood kids that serve as a brutal introduction to the physical and emotional consequences of combat. He tore through the amateurs with a frightening intensity, stacking nearly 300 wins. The 2008 Olympic trials were right within his grasp, representing a potential anchor for his soul and a ticket out of the cycle. But the streets pulled him back before the dream could solidify. At 18, he was hit with aggravated robbery and felony assault charges, sitting in jail for 6 months because he couldn't afford the bond. He eventually beat the case, but the time loss cost him his Olympic dream. That missed opportunity created a void in his professional identity. He wasn't fighting for a gold medal anymore. He was fighting for the things he thought a gold medal would buy him. The pursuit of greatness became a pursuit of the trappings of greatness. Under the guidance of Mike Stafford, Broner developed a style that was a surgical mirror image of Mayweather's. The impenetrable shoulder roll, the pinpoint counterpunching accuracy, and an unshakable confidence that frequently crossed the line into pure arrogance. By 2012, at just 23 years old, he was already a two-weight world champion. He dismantled world-class opposition like Antonio DeMarco and Vicente Escobedo with an ease that suggested he was barely trying, a predator who hadn't even begun to reach his physical ceiling. He didn't just walk into a ring. He sashayed into a destiny that he believed was his by birthright. He was the problem, and for a few years, it seemed like no one in the sport had the answer. He was fast, he was flashy, and in the early 2010s, he was seemingly untouchable. At his peak, Adrien wasn't just winning titles. He was becoming a cultural phenomenon, a focal point where professional sports and urban entertainment collided with explosive force. Rappers, athletes, and celebrities gravitated toward the About Billions movement, treating his fights like high-stakes festivals where the after-party was often more publicized than the main event itself. For a moment, Adrien Broner was living like hip-hop royalty. Instagram videos showed stacks of cash, diamond chains layered across his chest, and fleets of exotic cars parked outside million-dollar homes. Candy-painted Lamborghinis, blacked-out Rolls-Royce ghosts, Rolexes glittering under the harsh, rhythmic strobe lights of VIP sections. He traveled with massive, expensive entourages that catered to every whim, rented private jets for cross-country errands, and moved through cities like a rapper at the absolute height of his fame. He became the kin man. Anyone can get it, from Mexicans to Dominicans, but the reality was that his bank account was the one taking the most damage. Somewhere along the way, the applause became a drug he couldn't live without. Winning fights was no longer the primary goal. He needed to be the center of the digital universe. Broner wanted to go viral, to trend online, to dominate headlines, and to force a reaction every single time he entered a room. While Mayweather used his money persona as a calculated, business-minded tool to sell pay-per-views, Broner stopped performing the persona and started living it 24/7. The facade finally cracked in December 2013 when Broner moved up to welterweight to face the rugged, no-nonsense Marcos Maidana. Maidana didn't care about the swagger, the gold chains, or the hairbrush in the corner. He dropped Broner twice, bullied him across the ring, and handed him his first professional loss. The audience didn't just see a defeat. They saw the illusion of Broner's invincibility breaking in real time. The viral image of Broner running out of the ring in tears, fleeing the very spotlight he had spent years trying to capture. The boxing world expected a humble comeback, a return to the gym to reclaim his throne, but losing wasn't the real problem. The real problem was the destructive spiral of denial and indulgence that followed as he tried to drink and spend away the memory of the canvas. Every loss that followed seemed to reinforce a growing sense of detachment. By the time he faced Manny Pacquiao in 2019, the dream of becoming the next Mayweather had already faded into a bitter irony, a ghost of an ambition that no longer had the legs to run. Broner survived the distance, but the performance felt passive, flat, and painfully symbolic of his decline, landing only 50 punches over 12 rounds, roughly 4 punches per round. He still insisted he had won during the post-fight interview. It was a moment that exposed a deep, delusional disconnect from the reality of his own career. It felt like watching a man imitate the fighter he used to be, going through the empty motions of greatness without any of the substance. From 2014 to 2026, his career became a tragic montage of missed opportunities and self-inflicted wounds. The damage was no longer being done in the ring, but by a rap sheet that grew faster than his win column. The collapse was relentless, a steady erosion of his reputation, his resources, and his dignity. It started with a 2019 DUI, where police found him unconscious in his Rolls-Royce in the middle of Miami traffic. This legal siege only intensified over the years, leading to a 2025 arrest during a workout and a humiliating trespassing charge in Florida. As his discipline evaporated, so did his physical performance, leading to a visible stagnation against journeyman fighters he once would have dominated in his sleep. By 2026, the battle has moved from the championship ring to the chaotic, often cruel world of viral live streams. Broner has become a fallen celebrity in the digital age, a man whose struggles are broadcast to thousands of onlookers who tune in specifically for the spectacle of his decay. He often appears as a pawn for clout, exploited by smaller creators who recognize his name, but have zero respect for his legacy. His appearances on Kick have sparked deep concern among boxing fans, showing a 4-division champion shaving his beard for jewelry or begging for Uber money in front of a live audience. This public decay reached a low point in April 2026 when he was caught on camera insulting a woman for rejecting a kiss.
Let's kiss for the chat.
We're not kissing.
That's crazy.
I'm not doing that. I'll kiss the child. I'll kiss the child.
Kiss the chat.
Where's the seasoning?
Hey, though.
Just like
She gonna be a bitch. I leave though.
Followed by a heated public dispute over a mere $500 bet.
Touch me.
Nigga try to clip you, nigga.
I don't give a fuck about that clip, bro.
Chill out, nigga. I'll say you the 500,
Nah,
nigga.
nigga.
Ain't nothing, nigga.
Nah, nigga. Hey, see my 500, nigga.
I press a hurdle, gang. Just chill, bro.
I don't give a fuck who it is, nigga. I don't play about money, nigga. I got 10 kids, nigga. Send me 500, nigga. Send my 500.
Hey, B, this not a
For a man who once threw away thousands just to show he could, fighting over pocket change cemented his status as a fallen star who has lost his way in a world that no longer fears him. As the pacing slows, we see the human behind the headlines, a man grappling with the consequences of a life lived too fast and too loud.
You're going to be sitting there lost. Look at Broner. When
Yep.
he was at the top of the top,
Yeah.
everybody was there.
Yep.
He had everybody in this corner. Now he at his lowest. Now they making fun of him. Now they taking pictures. And
Beyond the viral clips and the courtroom sketches, Broner's personal life is a complex web of responsibility and controversy. He is a father to 7 children, a massive emotional and financial obligation that keeps his private life under constant public scrutiny and immense pressure. Every child support payment is a reminder of the wealth he no longer has, and every public outburst is a weight his family must carry. He is married to Ari Nicole, an influencer and entrepreneur from Cincinnati who has attempted to provide a sense of normalcy in the midst of his many storms. Though the relationship has been tested by repeated cheating allegations and leaked text messages that fueled endless social media drama. Together, they share 3 children. Yet, the shadows of his other 4 children represent the broader, often fractured reality of his home life, where his absence is often as loud as his presence. The $5 million mansion in Westchester with its saltwater pool and private bowling alley is now just a ghost of his past, a luxury he can no longer afford to visit even in his dreams. The symbolic death of the About Billions brand finally arrived in a courtroom in 2020. Facing a judge over nearly $800,000 in damages, Broner admitted under oath that his empire had shrunk to just $13. It was a confession that resonated through the sports world like a funeral bell for a dead era. The garage that once held a fleet of hypercars, the Aventadors and Rolls-Royce ghosts, has been decimated by repossessions, and the dream of the AB fleet has been replaced by the reality of calling Ubers to attend his various court dates. Now, at age 36, Broner is a man looking for a way back into a house he burned down with his own hands.
I done lost everything in the last 2 years. The woman I thought I'd marry, that's all that shit over with. And then, I thought drinking was gonna solve my problem. That ain't gonna solve shit. So I start putting the work in. Now I'm back. Yeah, I might be in Airbnb right here, but see me in 8 months. See me in 8 months though. And I'm in shape like a motherfucker. I'm on you niggas' ass, man. I'm getting my spot back, man.
Adrien Broner once wanted to become the next Floyd Mayweather. Instead, he became boxing's most painful reminder that talent alone means nothing if the man behind is falling apart from the inside out. Greatness was within his reach. He could feel the heat of the sun, but he learned the hard way that the problem isn't an opponent you can outbox. It's the person staring back at you in the mirror every morning. Somewhere inside Adrien Broner, the gifted kid from Cincinnati who once believed boxing could save him is probably still there. He's a man who lived 100 lifetimes before turning 35, yet he keeps trying to write one more chapter, refusing to accept that the book might already be closed. The tragedy is that fame arrived before he ever learned how to save himself from the very attention he craved. If you found this story of wasted potential compelling, hit the like button and subscribe. The story of Adrien Broner isn't over yet, but the ending is looking more like a tragedy than a triumph.